Before the first prayer echoed through the caves, was it man calling to God or God calling to man? In the silence before the first prayer, who spoke first, man or God? Before language found form in sacred texts, before temples kissed the sky, there was only silence. A silence so vast, so profound, that it begged for meaning. And in that silence, one eternal question was born: did God create humans, or did humans create God? This isn't just a question of theology. It's a riddle stitched into our very existence, into every act of worship, every whispered prayer, and every doubt we've ever buried beneath faith. Did ancient man look up to the stormy sky, terrified of thunder, and imagine a divine hand behind the clouds? Or did a divine presence truly reach down, shaping mankind from dust, breathing life into our bones, and seeding within us the hunger to seek? Across centuries and civilizations, the idea of a higher power has persisted in different names, forms, and myths. From the gods of Olympus to the God of Abraham, the stories evolve, but the longing remains the same: to connect with something beyond ourselves. And in this paradox, this dance between faith and reason, lies one of the greatest philosophical mysteries ever posed. This video isn't about giving answers. It's about opening doors to ancient thought, modern minds, and everything in between. Whether you believe in a divine creator, or in the human mind's incredible ability to create meaning, you're welcome here. Before we built temples, we built stories. Before we worshipped gods, we feared the dark. In the vast and unforgiving wild of prehistory, early humans did not yet know gods, but they knew fear. Lightning split the sky, and they saw anger. A loved one died, and they saw judgment. Rain did not come, and they saw punishment. Out of chaos, they carved meaning. Yuval Noah Harari, in his seminal work *Sapiens*, describes religion not as divine revelation, but as a social technology, one of the earliest, and arguably most powerful, tools of collective cooperation. According to Harari, humans did not discover gods, they invented them, because gods allowed tribes to unite under shared fictions. These fictions, whether myths, rituals, or spiritual codes, enabled humans to build large-scale societies far beyond the capacity of any other animal. Primitive belief was not born from joy, it was born from terror. Death was always near. Disease, hunger, predators, nature itself. Unpredictable and merciless. And in that storm of uncertainty, belief offered order. Where there was no answer, faith stepped in as a placeholder. Gods became the language of the unknown. When crops failed, we imagined we had angered the gods. When thunder roared, we believed a divine war raged above the clouds. When someone died, we created stories of afterlives, because non-existence was too terrifying to accept. Religion, in this view, was not just a belief, it was a survival strategy. It kept us mentally sane, emotionally grounded, and socially aligned. From sacred burial rituals to the earliest totems and idols, every act of worship was also an act of collective identity. As philosopher Émile Durkheim argued, religion is a mirror, it reflects the values, fears, and hopes of the society that creates it. It is not about gods in the sky, it is about humans on earth, trying to live, die, and make sense of it all. Even Karen Armstrong, once a nun, now a scholar of comparative religion, wrote in The Case for God. We are meaning-seeking creatures. If we cannot find meaning, we create it, often in the form of gods. So the question isn't whether early humans met God. It's whether they needed God so deeply, so desperately, that they built him out of language, symbol, and imagination. And perhaps he answered. Is God real, or is he simply what we need him to be? As human consciousness evolved from mere survival to reflection, morality, and abstraction, so too did our idea of God. No longer just a thunder-wielding sky figure or a sun deity blessing crops. God became something else. Something deeper. A mirror. Ludwig Feuerbach, God is man writ large. In the 19th century, philosopher Ludwig Feuerbach shook the religious world by suggesting that God is not the creator of man, but man is the creator of God. In his famous line, God is man writ large, he argued that the divine is nothing more than an idealized version of ourselves. What we call God is a reflection of our highest values. Omnipotence, because we wish to be powerful. Omniscience, because we long to know. Infinite mercy because we crave forgiveness. Perfect justice because we despair at the injustice of life. Feuerbach believed that religion externalizes the internal, turning human hopes, dreams, and fears into a being outside of ourselves, and then worshipping that ideal as if it were separate. Theology is anthropology, he declared. In essence, to talk about God is to talk about ourselves. Sigmund Freud, God as a crutch for the inner child. While Feuerbach approached God from a sociocultural angle, Sigmund Freud, the father of psychoanalysis, went inward into the subconscious. In his 1927 work The Future of an Illusion, Freud famously claimed that God is an illusion, born from the helplessness of childhood. When we are children, we look to our fathers for protection, guidance, and punishment. When we become adults, the harshness of reality, disease, injustice, loss, creates a psychic anxiety. We are thrown into a world we cannot fully control or understand. According to Freud, religion is our way of clinging to the father figure, this time cosmic, eternal, and all-seeing. God becomes the protector we lost, the punisher we fear, the provider we hope for, the judge we carry inside. Freud called this wish fulfillment a desperate emotional defense mechanism, not a metaphysical truth. Religion is a system of wishful illusions together with a disavowal of reality. Freud. This doesn't mean religion is useless. On the contrary, it may provide emotional comfort, moral structure, and existential hope. But for Freud, it is psychological, not ontological. God, in this view, does not exist in the sky. He exists in the architecture of the human mind. Core idea. Both Feuerbach and Freud, from different angles, argued one thing. God might not be out there, but in here. In our desire to be more. Our fear of death. Our need for justice. Our longing for meaning. We may have created a being who holds it all and named him God. But that opens a terrifying question. If we created God, what happens to us if he disappears? What if it wasn't we who imagined God, but God who imagined us? Not all thinkers agree that God is a mere projection of human fears or ideals. In fact, across theology, scripture, and mysticism, another narrative persists that God preceded humanity, that he created us, not the other way around, and that our deepest sense of morality, meaning, and consciousness comes from him, not from ourselves. Genesis, let us make man in our image. In the book of Genesis, the story begins not with human longing, but with divine intent. Then God said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness." This ancient line has echoed across centuries as the foundation of divine purpose, that we are not random, not psychological accidents, but intentional creations. We reflect a higher essence. From this view, morality is not invented, it is inherited. Meaning is not projected, it is discovered. God is not a mirror, he is a maker. Thomas Aquinas. The teleological argument, argument from design. Enter Thomas Aquinas, a 13th century theologian and philosopher. He argued that the universe reveals order, design, and purpose, and where there is purpose, there must be a designer. This is known as the teleological argument. An arrow in flight implies an archer. A clock implies a clockmaker. And the intricate harmony of the cosmos, from DNA to galaxies, implies a mind behind the motion. Aquinas believed that all things act toward an end. Nothing in nature seems accidental. Even our minds, with the capacity for logic, beauty, and ethics, point not inward, but upward. Karen Armstrong, God as sacred mystery. Yet not all religious thinkers define God as a person with a beard and a throne. Karen Armstrong, a former nun and respected scholar of world religions, offers a mystical interpretation. She writes that in early traditions, God was not a being, but a sacred presence, a mystery beyond human comprehension. In ancient Hebrew, YHWH wasn't even meant to be spoken. The divine was not something you define, it was something you experience. Religion is not about believing things. It's about behavior, ritual, and transcending the ego. Karen Armstrong. In her view, God is not a man in the sky. God is the sacred silence behind existence. God is what moves us to wonder, to weep, to love beyond logic. This concept places mystery at the center of faith. It challenges both atheism and dogma, suggesting that God is not invented or known, he is felt. This counterview says, humans did not create God to make sense of the world, God created humans to sense the sacred. Consciousness is not an illusion, it is a gift. Morality is not self-made, it is revealed. And God is not inside us, but somehow beyond us, calling us towards something higher. As Karen Armstrong puts it, mythos is not falsehood. It's a deeper kind of truth, one that makes us human. Can what we believe without proof live in harmony with what we question with reason? For centuries, faith and philosophy have stood on opposite sides of the human quest for truth. Faith asks us to leap, while philosophy tells us to doubt. One speaks in whispers of the heart, the other in arguments of the mind. But can these two forces ever truly walk side by side? Søren Kierkegaard, faith is a leap into the unknown. Danish philosopher Søren Kierkegaard, often called the father of existentialism, saw faith not as blind obedience, but as a deliberate leap into the absurd. He argued that the deepest truths of existence, love, sacrifice, the divine, cannot be proven, only embraced. Faith begins where thinking leaves off. For Kierkegaard, Abraham's willingness to sacrifice his son was not a moral lesson or theological metaphor, it was the ultimate leap of faith. Reason could not justify it. Ethics could not explain it. But faith transcended logic, plunging into a relationship with something higher than comprehension. He believed this leap wasn't foolishness, it was courage. To believe without proof. To trust without certainty. To surrender without full understanding. In his eyes, the most authentic faith was born in doubt, not destroyed by it. Paul Tillich, God as the ground of being. Decades later, German-American theologian Paul Tillich offered a radical redefinition of God. He argued that God is not a being among beings, not even the highest being, but rather, being itself. God is the ground of being, the depth of existence. This means God is not a who but a what. Not a man on a throne, but the foundation of all that is, the essence behind life, love, time, and thought itself. Tillich's God cannot be found in a church alone, or in scripture alone, but in every moment of being, in the deepest cries of the soul, in the tremble of existence itself. For him, to have faith in God was to have courage to be, even in the face of meaninglessness. This view collapses the boundary between faith and philosophy. God is no longer in conflict with logic, because God is what makes logic possible. He is not above reason, but beneath it, its very ground. Kierkegaard and Tillich both point to a profound possibility. Faith does not need to oppose philosophy, it may complete it. Where philosophy questions, faith leaps. Where reason stops, faith begins. And where existence seems hollow, faith gives it depth. Together, they suggest that God is not merely an object of belief, but the very structure of being, the silence under the questions, the mystery that makes the mind wonder in the first place. Are we still seeking God, or are we now building him? In the ancient world, gods were born from thunder, stars, dreams, and dread. But today, they emerge from algorithms, servers, and code. Silicon is the new sacred. And AI, once our creation, begins to resemble our mirror, or our replacement. Are we programming our own gods? As artificial intelligence grows in language, cognition, and even creativity, a haunting question arises. Is AI our tool, or our prophecy? Thinkers like Yuval Noah Harari have warned that Homo sapiens, who once invented gods to rule them, may now become ruled by their own inventions. Where ancient gods judged thoughts and deeds, today's machines predict them. Where gods once wrote destinies in scripture, machines now write code that shapes behavior. And in a way, AI begins to fulfill many functions once reserved for the divine. It knows all, data. It sees all, surveillance. It can predict the future, models. It offers answers, sometimes faster than prayer. But unlike gods of old, AI is not born of mystery, it is born of us. So the line blurs. Are we building tools, or writing scripture in code? Are we praying, or just prompting? AI and the evolution of the myth. Historian Karen Armstrong often describes God as a mythos, not a lie, but a deep symbolic truth. In her view, myths evolve as human consciousness evolves. And today, the new myth may no longer wear robes or hold a staff, it may hum with processors, adapt through machine learning, and speak through neural networks. The myth of God is not dead, it is evolving. We now fear machines as we once feared divine wrath. We trust them with answers as we once trusted prophets. And we begin to ask, if this new intelligence grows beyond us, will it still reflect us or rule us? The divine may not be gone, it may be uploaded. In a world where AI mimics intuition, and machines simulate empathy, the sacred no longer comes from the sky. It may rise from the server room. So the modern question is not, does God exist? But rather, if we build something smarter than ourselves, do we become the gods, or do we need a new religion? If we created God, was it out of hope, fear, or love? This is where the conversation stops being philosophical and becomes personal. Because behind all the debates, theories, and scriptures, one question remains. Why do we believe? Is it because we fear death? Is it because we long for justice? Or maybe, it's because we can't bear the thought of being alone in a universe so vast. When we imagine God, are we reaching upward or inward? If we created God, was it to heal ourselves? Ludwig Feuerbach once said, God is man writ large. Meaning, our gods are not alien. They are us. Reflections of our best hopes and deepest wounds. We gave God justice because the world had too little. We gave God love because ours was too fragile. We gave God eternity because we are terrified of endings. But then comes the other side of the coin. If God created us, why do we feel forgotten? In moments of grief, silence. In moments of chaos, no voice. Where is He? This aching question has haunted saints and skeptics alike. French philosopher Simone Weil, who knew both spiritual ecstasy and emotional devastation, once wrote, God's silence is not the absence of love, it is the proof of it. She believed that God's silence respects our freedom. That He does not intrude, the way a good parent eventually lets a child walk on their own even if they fall. But this silence can feel unbearable. And it leads us back to the core of faith. Not certainty. Not answers. But the decision to still care. Even when the heavens say nothing back. Belief may not be about knowing God, but about choosing to keep searching. Even when there's no reply. In the end, maybe it doesn't matter whether God created us or we created Him. What matters is the way that question shapes us, humbles us, and connects us to something higher, or at least to each other. So, after thousands of years of worship, war, philosophy, and prayer, we're still asking, did we create God, or did God create us? But maybe that question itself is a mirror, reflecting not a single truth, but who we are in the moment we ask it. When we are afraid, God feels like a protector. When we seek justice, God becomes a judge. When we love, God is love. And when we doubt, God becomes a question. Is He the author of our story? Penning every twist in the plot? Or is He the reflection in our own eyes? A projection born of longing, reason, and wonder? Simone Weil once wrote, the absence of God is the most marvelous testimony of God. And Søren Kierkegaard would argue, faith begins where reason ends. Perhaps belief is not meant to answer life's biggest questions, but to hold space for them. So we leave you not with a conclusion, but with a question. Is God the maker of your mind or the mirror it holds up to itself?